Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to and live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live, and we are ready to go for this Hump Day. That's right, Hump Day headlines. We got all kinds of stuff to go over this morning and discuss. Including in hour one, David Boyle is going to be joining us. I think this is him on the phone. Is that you, David?
Yes, sure is, Michael.
Oh, okay. I thought you were joining us via the video link. All right. Well, hold the line here. I'm going to put you back on hold. I think David just jumped in there. So we're going to talk with David Boyle here in just a minute, who writes for MustRead Alaska. We're going to talk about education here in just a second with him. We're going to talk about things that are going on inside the Anchorage School District and more, including their policy on transgendered students, which, well, I mean, there's some iffy stuff going on there. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to be talking in hour two with gubernatorial candidate Bruce Walden, sorry, not Walton. It's not the Waltons. It's not John Boy. It's Walden, like on the Walden. Anyway, Bruce Walden's going to be joining us talking about his, and he's going to be here talking with us about his gubernatorial run and about his vision for the state of Alaska as a candidate. He is the one of the latest to jump into the race here, and it should be, well, let's just put it this way. It should be interesting, to say the least. It's wow. It's going to be kind of crazy. So anyway, that's going to be the show today. We're going to have a lot of good stuff going on. Coming up tomorrow on the program, we will be joined tomorrow by Bernadette Wilson, who's also running for governor. Bernadette will be joining us in hour two. And in hour one, we're going to talk with some folks about a big shindig out, down here on the Kenai. We're going to be talking about their big shindig for mental health issues and other things. So it'll be some local stuff in hour one, and then Bernadette Wilson in hour two. And then on Friday, Dr. John Lott will join us. And so we're full week already, man. It's just, I love it. Go. So that's going to be great stuff. And we're going to be covering all that here as we go through. All right. So before we get too far along here, I had to pull out all the stops here and make some changes with David, because I thought we were doing it the other way, but we will, let's do this. All right. David Boyle is about to join us. Again, he writes for MustRead Alaska. He is an education advocate and writes for MustRead on issues of education and state schooling rather. And he joins us this morning via telephone. Let's jump over to him and see what's going on. Hello, David. You got me all confused this morning. What's going on?
Well, good morning, Michael. Well, you sent me an email, said there was a link in it, and there was no link.
Oh, it's a calendar invite. Sorry about that. You had a calendar invite, same link as before, but no big deal. We got it. We got her.
Okay. Good.
We got her, Otter. We got everything all squared away. All right. Well, let's sit down and whoops, wrong one. Let's sit down and talk about this. I brought you on board and I asked you to come visit with us because I wanted to talk about your latest article. And look, I'll be honest with you, David. I thought some of this stuff was already decided. I thought we had already kind of gone over some of these things with the folks inside the Anchorage School District, where we had talked about things like, oh, I don't know, if a kid is trying to decide if they're, trying to decide their gender or something like that, they would bring the parents into the mix. They would discuss it with their parents. Turns out that's not the case. That the Anchorage School District has got a completely different policy. And of course, this has become a larger issue because we've just seen that several of the recent shootings that have taken place have been caused by, I guess, what I would call gender confused kids who are trying to decide, what they were. And it's led to some questions about mental health and everything else. But this policy in the Anchorage School Districts, walk me through this here. This is kind of crazy.
Well, the Anchorage School District has a document called Transgender Guidelines. And first, I must say that the reason they put it out as guidelines, they don't as policy, is because they don't want to put it out in the public, generally speaking. In other words, if it's a guideline only, it doesn't have to come before the school board for approval. So there's no public debate and no public discussion. So actually, they're trying to hide the entire transgender guidelines and call it an administrative rule for the staff and the students to follow. Mr. Donnelly, one of the school board members when this came out, a year or two ago, wanted it to become a policy and asked for it to be debated in the school board session. However, he didn't get a second on his motion, so it died. If you don't get a second to a motion, then that issue does die. So they're actually trying to hide, let's call it their policy, from the general public, because it's really kind of scary, because it leaves the parents out totally in the secondary. If a student wants to identify as a transgender or has gender ID issues or wants to use a different pronoun than their biological sex, then those students in high school, middle and high school, are allowed to keep that secret from their parents. And the school district complies with that. And, let's look at the recent shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's really bad. 2 little children, 8 and 10 years old, killed, and a couple of staff members were killed, and 18 others, 18 were wounded. No staff members killed. 18 were wounded. 2 children were killed. That individual, that transgender individual, had some serious mental health issues. Let's suppose now, hypothetically, that a student like that is in the Anchorage School District or Fairbanks, Matsu, any of the school districts in Alaska, and the parents are unaware that the student is using a different pronoun at school and has transgender issues, gender identification issues, and talks to the counselors and the school psychologist and withholds all of that information due to these administrative guidelines from the parents. This could be disastrous. This could really be disastrous.
No,
the school district. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, this is kind of nutty because, again, at the age that these kids are in middle and high school, now middle school starts at what, 12, 13 years old? Yes. So we're talking about 12 and 13-year-olds all the way up to 17-year-olds. I mean, these are people who, society has decided are too young to drink, to smoke, to vote, and up until the last couple of years, too young to drive or get a tattoo. They can't, you're not going to let some kid chop off his finger because it would be super weird, but you're going to encourage him to lop off other parts of his or her body. I mean, this is just some kind of weird, I've never understood this. This is some kind of weird cultish behavior that is just bizarre. And on top of that, you're requiring that the parents are responsible for the actions of their children. We see that all the time. Parents are responsible for the actions of their children. They're held accountable for what they've taught, or if they're controlling them, or everything else. And yet at the same time, the school is now going to actively hide one of the most critical things in the growth of a young child's life from their parents. Like the kid can make that decision in and of themselves. But again, they can't smoke, drink, vote, drive, get a tattoo, do any of that stuff. But suddenly they're the arbiters of what their whole life will look like. I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. I don't even know why we're talking about it today. This is what amazes me. Why is the subject even coming up? There should be no question that the parents should be involved. If a student at school needs one like an aspirin or Tylenol, let's say, you have to get the parents' written permission for that. But you don't have to get the parents' written permission to psychologically impact their children. And there may be some people, or let's say psychologists and mental health counselors in the school district, that actually kind of want to incentivize this behavior and go along with it and become the friend of the transgender or gender ID student. But hiding this from the parents is, I don't know. I think it would be terrible to see an accident or incident, a shooting in one of the public schools in Alaska or even private schools, and come to find out that this information was hidden from the parents. I think the school districts hiding this from the parents, and if there's a huge incident that would occur, shooting, killings, that the school districts themselves would be totally liable for this. And I don't know about the incident in Minneapolis. The parent was, well, actually, there was a school teacher that said she reported this mental instability to the authorities several years ago when she had this, I call him a murderer, which he was, when she had this murder in her class. And she said, I don't know what happened to that. She, filed an official report, but she didn't know what happened to that report afterwards. I guess officials just ignored it. Probably the school district administrators ignored it as well. But here's what it says, quote, in the transgender guidelines in the Anchorage School District, which, by the way, these guidelines came down from the National Education Association, National in Washington, D.C. Quote, prior to notification of any parent or guardian regarding the transition process, I don't know what that includes, might include genital mutilation as well, school staff should work closely with the student to assess the degree to which, if any, the parent or guardian will be involved in the process, considering at all times the health, well-being, and safety of the transitioning student.
Right.
Well, they become the surrogate parents.
Well, that's it. There's the amount of arrogance and hubris in this that somehow they're going to take the place of the parent on this. And the first part of that, which you didn't read, says, generally notification of a student's parent about his or her gender identity, expression, or transition is unnecessary, as they're already aware and may be supportive. In some cases, however, notifying parents carries risks for the student if the family does not support the student's desire to transition. Well, that's because, again, they're children. They don't know what they want. I mean, not to go to too far in extremes, but sometimes kids run around saying, I want to be an astronaut and president of the United States one day. Well, those are great aspirational goals, but that doesn't mean that your kid's going to go out and start doing, physical. I mean, it's crazy. Kids have, they're growing. They have different ideas. They don't have the judgment that's needed to make a lifetime decision at the ages of 10, 12, 13, 14, even 15 years old. They're just not equipped to deal with that. And in fact, we've got many cases where people have made those kind of decisions younger in their life and wish they could go back and change them. Because again, that's what parents are supposed to do. We're supposed to offer the guidance and guidelines of things like this. Like I said, I thought this was already a decided issue in the Anchorage School District, and that that there had been enough backlash that they had stopped this and said, well, we're going to have to notify. And I guess this will be the question for when we return from the break, but is that the difference, or do we have a clash here between official policy, which is discussed in public, and now these guidelines? That's my question for David Boyle when we come back here in just a second. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. I mean, this is nutty, okay? I mean, if you as an adult want to do whatever you want to do, hey, you do you, boo, okay? If you want to cosplay as a girl or a boy and you're not that at birth, okay, I guess that's one. But these are children. Again, they can't get a tattoo, which is permanent and doesn't really hurt anything. But I mean, they can't get that. But you want to, modify your body permanently? I mean, there's some crazy stuff. We're going to be back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break with David Boyle. Yeah, I mean, David, we look at this, and there was a list that was going around of various shootings that had taken place over the last 3 or 4 years. And there was 8, 9 individuals who were either transgendered, non-binary, or gender fluid. That's how they were basically gender confused in this whole thing. And I think it's got to be recognized that there's some underlying mental issues going on with those with folks who are going through that kind of stuff. And and I'm glad to see that RFK Jr. has said that they're now taking a look at psychotropics and everything, and is there a connection between that and some of the violence and some of the other things? But we need to be looking at this again. This is a mental health crisis across America, and it's being encouraged. In this case, this language to me looks very encouraging from a standpoint of the schools basically saying, hey, we want to hide this from the parents because they may not be supportive of it. That's not your decision. The parents are the ones that know these kids inside and out. They're trying to be, as you said, they're trying to surrogate parent these children.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote an article, I think it was a year and a half ago for MustRead on exactly the same thing. Because I think it was 2 years ago, because I found the transgender guidelines. I don't know how I found them, to be honest with you, but I did find them because I do a lot of searching. And I talked to Mr. Donnelly on the school board, and he says, I asked this to be put in policy, and I didn't even get a second on it. And so they're complicit, the rest of the school board, in this hiding things from parents. And parents should know what their child is doing. But I was talking to my wife, I didn't know any of this was going on when I was a kid, which is a lot of years ago, but talking to my wife, and she's, girls question their genders when they're like teenagers, probably because when they're going through puberty, their body's changing a lot. And she said, I kind of felt that way back then, was I more like a boy or more like a girl? And she said, but that was just a phase we go through, and it's a very vulnerable phase for the educators and the professionals in the schools to take these children in those vulnerable phases and questioning their gender and sex, to mold them and have them come out as a transgender. And I think that is happening as well. But wow, it sure has been.
Well, it has. It's totally changed. And I agree. Anthony in the chat room says, reason number 3,201, why to take your kids out of public schools and teach them at home. And that's exactly it. I mean, look, you may be a horrible teacher. You may not be the greatest teacher on earth by teaching your kids at home, but at least they wouldn't be exposed to this kind of radical subversive indoctrination, or this kind of radical, nanny stating where they think that they can do better with your kid than you can. That's essentially what they're saying. The parents might not be supportive of this. Well, would the parents be supportive that some 12-year-old girl wants to get a neck tattoo or can't quit smoking or something like that? If that, again, there are things that we just cannot do and would not do. It's unthinkable that we would allow them to modify body piercings or all this other kind of stuff, but it's perfectly okay if we want them to ingest chemicals and medications that will completely alter their internal systems and their hormonal balance, or God forbid actually amputate certain parts of their body, both boys and girls. I mean, that's crazy. They're not old enough to even think about the long-term ramifications of that.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're spot on, and it's really good that Secretary Kennedy is going to take this on as part of his mission to look at what they call SSRIs that are given to children and even adults for things like depression, bipolarism, etc., and see if it's really affecting these children in the schools, and some of the Ritalin and the Adderall as well may be affecting these kids. But the transgender community and the supporters say, well, you're going to have all these transgenders committing suicide.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Oh, that was an abrupt rejoin. Sorry about that. I got lost in my conversation with David Boyle, who writes for MustRead Alaska. He's an education advocate, and he writes for MustRead on issues of education. And we were just talking about, again, this kind of madness, especially when it comes to, it's not even just the full-on body mutilation of where maybe somebody's having things removed from their body that you can't get back after it's done. We're talking about some of the medications and drugs that these kids and these teens are being put on in their gender dysphoria that completely changes their body chemistry. I mean, it stunts growth. It changes adolescence. It blocks puberty. It does all these other things. Some crazy stuff. David and I were just talking about that before we came back. But David, the question I asked you ahead of time was, I thought that this had been a discussion about, I think 2 years ago, this had been a big discussion, a big talking point inside the Anchorage School District. And I thought the policy had changed where they had agreed to, hey, the parents need to know, the parents need to be brought into the discussion. Is that still policy? And then this is guidelines that are antithetical to those policies. And you explained earlier that guidelines don't have to go before a public review because they're just guidelines internally. Is that what's going on here?
I watch the Anchorage School District fairly closely. I actually listened to the school board meeting, on Tuesday night. And by the way, I have not seen any changes to these transgender guidelines. It is not a policy. I've asked them the question, and they, for an open records request, and I usually don't get much of a response from them, but time will tell. I'll work with Mr. Donnelly, the school board member, to determine that. But I don't think it's changed. It's just the way it always has been. But when you have shootings like this in Minneapolis and the one in Nashville a year and a half ago or so, last year, this needs to be highlighted and brought up before the school board. And boy, I'll tell you what, if they have a shooting in the Anchorage School District by, quote, a trans or a gender ID individual student, they need to be held accountable. And the school board needs to be held accountable because they're a party to this. They don't want to discuss it.
And I don't think that every kid that has gender dysphoria is a mass murderer or a school shooter in waiting. No. But I think it points to an underlying problem of mental health issues. And again, what really burns me up about this is that they would be actively subverting the role of the parent in raising the child. I mean, I'm going to read this one more time for folks who may have just joined. This is the actual guidelines, the specific language on hiding the secondary students' name changes or gender transition, issues from the parents. It says generally notifications of a student's parent about his or her gender identity expression or transition is unnecessary as they are already aware and may be supportive. In some cases, however, notifying parents carries risks for the student if the family does not support the student's desire to transition. Prior to notification of any parent or guardian regarding the transition process, school staff should work closely with the student to assess the degree to which, if any, the parent guardian will be involved in the process, considering at all times the health, well-being, and safety of the transitioning student. Now, David, we've all watched TV and movies and everything else. And what's one of the biggest tropes in television or in movies when it comes to family units and everything else? There's always the teenager who just doesn't, they're on their phone. They don't care. Well, I'm going to do it my way, right? They're always the rebellious teenager. And in the end of the movie, they always come back around and go, oh, you're right. It is about family. And I was being wrong. And I was, it's a trope. They know that teenagers can't make the best decisions. They know that kids don't have the life experience to have this. That's why the parents are there. And this is completely short-circuiting that.
Yeah, Michael, it makes you wonder, is this really just bad judgment and decision-making on the part of the Anchorage School District administrators? Or is there intent here? I hope it's not the latter, and I hope it's the former. But they have time to change. They can change their guidelines and put them into an actual policy. But it's just amazing. So what they've done is, if they have a student in middle or high school that has gender dysphoria, and let's say just general gender dysphoria, they'll talk to that student and counsel them. Then they have their own in-house psychologist, a lot of them. And they'll refer it to their in-house psychologist without the parent even knowing. Now, to me, that's kind of like taking your child to a medical doctor,
right,
without you knowing that.
Yeah, you don't treat my child. You don't take my child to an internist because their appendix is swollen without telling me, right? You're not going to send my kid to an internist for that, but you'll be okay with sending him to a psychologist for some kind of mental issue and not tell me, because I might be offended or afraid, or I might have a different opinion than you on how it should be treated. Again, this is madness. You are completely suborning the rights of the parent to raise their child. Why would you send your kids to a place like this where they would actually suborn your rights as a parent to parent your child?
That's the question to answer. Parents need to get involved, and they need to know what's going on with their child at school. But how do you find that out? If you're that parent and your child uses different pronouns, you're not going to find it out today. I guess you could get a court order, but I don't think any court in Alaska would even give you that order. But you don't have a right to know what your child is doing, what's going on with your child's mental health in the Anchorage School District. And by the way, they've increased the number of mental health providers dramatically, and they also do some contracting out for mental health providers as well, as I learned just the other day. Now, Western Journal, I don't know if you've heard of the Western Journal.
I have.
Very well respected. They did an analysis that since 2020, this is amazing, 40% of mass shooters or would-be mass shooters have been identified as transgender or suspected of being as such. And that list I put on in my article is just amazing. And you watch, these children are mentally disturbed, and they need to be helped. They don't need to be hidden from parents. They need to be helped by parents, and parents may never know what's going on with their child mentally. They go into their bedroom when they come home. They get on the internet and they go to some really bad sites that encourage their bad behavior, let's say, or copycat murders, like perhaps this last one in Minneapolis did. It appears as if he may have done a copycat murder of the Nashville shooter. This I don't know how to describe this individual. He was just really sick. And I don't know what his mother's doing, where his mother was, because she worked for the school,
right,
as a receptionist, and he graduated from that school.
And again, I mean, I think that this is, you know, the whole issue of the school shootings. I think, although it's tangentially tied to this, I mean, that is a mental health crisis, and I think that while many of these trans kids or these gender dysphoric kids share that same break, again, I don't think that there's necessarily a direct connection between anybody who's confused about their gender and the violence. But again, it points to the deeper issue of mental health issues overall. And again, most people who suffer some kind of mental health issue are nonviolent, but it's just those few and far between. I mean, if you're talking about, 15, 20, 30, 40 people out of the whole country who have become violent because of their mental illness, that's still a pretty small slice, but it doesn't mean that we stop looking into the issue and trying to figure out how do we help these people before they become violent.
You're exactly right. We need to do some preventive mental health care, and I honestly, we need to get it outside of the school district, Anchorage School District as well, because they'll just hide things. From what I've seen, if there's some bad stuff going on, they're not going to let the public know. Their psychologist is not going to let the parents know. So these kids, if they're identified as gender dysphoric or they have really serious mental health issues in the schools, they need to be referred to the parents, so the parent and so the parent can refer them to a psychologist or even a psychiatrist.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. That should be the first stage. Like I said, if a kid has a bloated appendix, you don't just send him to the doctor and never tell the parents, hey son, why did you come home with a big bandage on your stomach? Oh, I was getting my appendix pulled out today. I mean, they never told me that, I mean, that's crazy. That's actually crazy stuff. And that they say it right here in their guidelines, not to inform the parents if you, the teacher, apparently think that it might have a negative reaction at home. It's not your call. As a parent, you have the right and responsibility to raise your child. And so I guess my question here is, as we wrap up this segment, because I want to get onto the cell phone issue, but I mean, my final question is, what as parents, I mean, first and foremost, again, why are you sending your kids to a school like this that does these kind of things and has these kind of policies? That's my first question. You can school your own kids or send them to some other district if that's what it needs to be, correspondence or whatever. But what can parents do who live in the school district and who are dealing with this or potentially would have to deal with this, David? What can they do?
Well, like you said, get your children out of the public school system if you possibly can. Get them into a homeschool or correspondence program so you can monitor them much more closely. And as we saw, one of the best things to come out of the COVID pandemic was the fact that parents finally could look over their kids' shoulders and see what they were learning and what they were not learning in the public school system. The other thing is to literally confront the administration. If you have a hint of your child having mental health issues, including gender dysphoria, and maybe they're on some SSRI drugs for that type of behavior, you need to work closely as a team. You got to be a team with the school district and the administrators. And don't let them put one over you and hide things from you. You may end up getting a lawyer to find out what's going on with your child in a school, because that's one thing they understand. The administrators in schools, they understand money. Right. The threat of a lawsuit, they usually bend over for you. But you just need to pay attention. Don't just put your kid out there in the school bus on the corner and they come home and they go to their room and they may have access to some weapons. They may be going down the dark side. And to me, this is a constant battle between good and evil. And you need to confront the evil and protect your child. It's your child. It's not the school district's child. And you're responsible. Actually, you're responsible for their behavior. And in the past, one of the parents of these killers, trans shooters, was actually got a 10-year sentence to prison because they knew what was going on and they didn't tell anybody.
Right.
So,
well,
they're your children.
Again, I think more than anything, what we could do is encourage, like folks like David Donnelly, who attempted to have this policy discussed in the public. I think, if this is going to be the attempt of what they want the policy to be, then it should be discussed in the public, not as a guideline, but as a policy, so that it has to be discussed among parents and everything else. That should be the least of the issues on this.
Well, you're spot on, Michael. But the problem with the general public is, I don't know of anybody that listens to the school board meetings on YouTube in Anchorage. I don't know of anybody that actually goes to the school board meetings and the work sessions. Like there were 3 or 4 people there last night looking at the audience, or Tuesday night. It's just like voters. They're low information. A lot of them are low information and no information people, and they need to start paying attention to their children and what's happening to them.
Well,
and what could happen to them.
I think
the fact of the matter is, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think a hot button issue like this might get some audience participation, might get some parental participation if they knew this was the talking point. It would require, obviously, a lift to get the information out to people to know that this is what they're going to be discussing. But yeah, I think it could happen, and at least it would expose it to the light. We got about 60 seconds here.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Parents need to be proactive. Unfortunately, it would be very sad if parents became reactive after a very tragic shooting in one of the schools anywhere in Alaska. And that would get their attention for sure. And that's the unfortunate part. So they're your kids. Protect your kids. We need to protect the children also that have gender dysphoria problems. But most importantly, we need to protect the other 99.99% of the children in the schools from some of the other mentally disturbed children. Let's, for lack of a better term.
All right, we're going to talk about cell phone policies here in a minute. We're continuing with our guest, David Boyle, who writes for MustRead Alaska on education policy. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour, Bruce Walden, candidate for governor, joins us as well. We'll return more in just a moment.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are back. David Boyle is our guest in the break here. We're continuing on with this. David, the thing that shines out most for me on this whole discussion is the fact that they are trying to suborn the rights of parents. I mean, everything else is important, the gender dysphoria, the mental health issues, and everything else. But at its core, this issue is about essentially suborning the right of parents to be able to parent and take care of their children. That's really what this whole thing is about.
You're right. I can't say much else about that because parents need to step up and become parents, and just like the old days, actually do hands-on parenting. It's their children, and boy, you have to look out for them. Consider the fact that you might. What would you do if you were the parent of one of of a trans that actually went into a school and murdered other children? I mean, I personally, I couldn't handle that for the rest of my life. It would just be horrible. But the other thing, I just don't understand why schools are protecting one individual or two individuals, let's say in these cases, from the rest. I don't know, from the rest of the public, I'd say, why protect one trans or one gender dysphoric student when you've got 99.99% of the other students that are not protected? So we'll see what happens. There was a bill, House Bill 183 in the legislature back in 2024, and that had to do with girls, transgenders being in girls sports. And wow, what happened is just amazing. It didn't pass. It passed the House, but it didn't pass the Senate. And you listen to some of these legislators on the left side. They come out like Andy Josephson. Now, when I say concerns me about this bill, it's like the 5,000th thing in the world that concerns me. I'm more concerned about getting home to work my lawn than I am about that bill by a lot. And of course, there's Zach Fields.
Right.
The most absurd thing about this bill is that it would force all girls, my girls, to undergo a genital inspection test. But
Yeah, look.
so
I mean, again, the whole reaction to me, and again, I want to come back to, and I don't want to keep tying the the trans thing you mentioned again. Well, what if a kid shoots? I mean, again, there's no causality on that. I think it's definitely trending in a weird way, and we need to be looking at it. I think it's a mental health issue with all of these shooters, whether they're straight or fluid or whatever. But again, the problem is this is a usurpation of your parental rights. That's the important part of this whole thing for me. Is as a parent, I should be involved in those things from the get-go.
No, I agree 100% with you. Like you said, if I'm not involved in it and the school district won't allow me to be involved in it, I'm going to pull my child out of that school and either homeschool him or put him in a different school, public or private. So
yeah,
that I just can't believe this is the topic of discussion in this world today.
Yeah, no, I can't. Well, like I said, I know that there'd been a big blow up over this and it was actually around the whole the bathroom issue. I know, and the girls' sports issue. They had discussed this policy in the ADN and in other publications about what the ASD's policy was, and I thought at the time they had said, okay, we will inform parents. And so if that is a stated policy and yet they have guidelines that say something antithetical to that, guidelines which don't have to be reviewed by the public or the school board, they're just internal guidelines, that's a problem. That's a complete, and that's a huge problem.
Well, I don't believe they have a policy on transgenders and gender dysphoric students. I've never seen it, and I watch them very closely. Their trans administrative guidelines are still in place. If you can go to their DEI and community relations department, and you can find those. They haven't removed them; they're the same. But here we are going to talk about cell phone policy. Wow, they're really big on that.
Yeah, well,
that's really important.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Well, I'll be honest with you. And I'm going to tie some things together here. I think some of that, what we're seeing in problems in school today, I think can be directly tied to the cell phone usage in school and everything else. But I do want to talk about it. So we'll get your take on it here in just a second and see what you have to say. We may have differing views on this, but I am all for the away all day kind of thing. If you want to leave the building and text your parents, let them know, or if you want to do something like that, I'm okay with it being away all day in every schoolroom, in every classroom, in every hallway, locker room, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we're going to continue here in just a minute. David Boyle is our guest. He writes for MustRead Alaska as an education advocate. We're going to continue the Michael Dukes Show.
The Michael Dukes Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, one final segment here with David Boyle, who writes for MustRead Alaska as a education advocate, and he's been digging into school stuff for years. We were just talking about the guidelines in the school about essentially hiding a child's transitioning thing from their parents and how that's a guideline that teachers can, it's crazy stuff. But before we get into that, I want to come back to the latest, which is the restrictions of cell phones. That was actually one of the things that came out of HB 57 was that there was a statewide thing but school districts were already working on this. And the Anchorage School Board has adopted a district-wide ban on cell phones. They did that in March, and it basically each school has some leeway as to when they use it. The new policy for Anchorage School District allows high schoolers to use their phone during passing periods and lunch, while elementary and middle school students are prohibited from using their phone the entire day. But Eagle River High School has gone away all day. That's their new version, meaning no phones are allowed to be used in the school building for the entire day. Now, there's exceptions for students with medical needs who maybe have got a blood monitor for their diabetes or something like that, or kids with special needs. But overall, they've been saying basically no. And I think, quite honestly, this is if my kids were in school, I think this would be a policy that I would support. Away all day is what I'm talking about. And by the way, the Matsu Fairbanks has put in an away all day policy. The Matsu has done it. The Juneau has done it as well. They have passed away all day policies as well. And the Kenai Peninsula Borough is has a policy in effect, but they're changing some of the districts, some of the different schools are changing it as we go. But I think away all day is a fine thing, David. What do you say as far as cell phone bans in school at the middle school? Well, all grade levels, but from especially middle school and high schoolers.
Well, all of us, including you and me, I'm sure, spend too much time on screens. I personally don't spend any time on my cell phone. I don't have emails on there. I don't have Facebook on there because I don't want them. My wife, on the other hand, she's electronically tied, has an electronic leash to her cell phone, and she has one of those smart watches too. Which, God, leave me alone. I'm too old to do that, but I agree. I like the no cell phone policy. I don't think there's a problem with having them at lunch, but I wouldn't have them in the high schools. I wouldn't allow cell phones during passing time. That's too disruptive. I think the kids. I mean, if they're in a classroom previously, prior to these policies being implemented, if they're in a classroom and sitting there and looking at their cell phone and not paying attention to the teacher, they're not learning the darn thing. Well, they may not be learning anything anyway, to be honest with you. But I'm all for the Eagle River schools ban on cell phones totally during the day. If you want to use it, you can use it after school or before school or on the way to school on the bus. But other than that, the only argument that I ever hear that may be a little bit valid is the fact that parents complain, well, what if there's some serious thing going on, incident at the school? Well, what happens then is all the kids go on their cell phone, jam the cell towers, and the officials can't get through even because there's too much traffic. And, the cell towers the system is just swamped. So I don't know. I'm all for not having cell phones at all in the schools. Not at all.
Well, I know, again, there is some arguments about what if something happens at the school. Chris in the chat room says it's much harder to suppress incidents when kids use cell phone to create firsthand recordings. I don't know what the policy is specifically on the away all day, other than they're not supposed to have them or use them. That doesn't mean that I couldn't have my cell phone in my pocket and just not be using it all day. If something comes up where I need to record it, I could. All right, that's something. But again, we all know that high school, especially high school, is kind of a petri dish of peer pressure and cliques and everything else. And they said that one of the things that they were talking about during this area was that they were where is it here? That one of the things is that there was bullying and harassment. Students were still using their phones. Eagle River was early to the trend of limiting cell phone in schools. They introduced a school-wide policy that aimed to limit cell phone use about a dozen years ago. They said that restricted cell phone use if the devices were used for cheating or bullying, but administrators said students were still using their phones to arrange fights at school or harass each other on social media during the school day, and that was becoming a problem. Because again, they're cliquish by nature, and kids, they can be mean. They go in packs, and if they've got cell phones and they can do that social media bullying, that's part of the problem as well. So by eliminating the phone use in the building throughout the whole day, that can be done. So again, it's not that you hide the phone in your car or in your backpack or in your, I mean, you can have it in your back pocket or your purse or whatever. And you just don't use it unless there's an absolute necessity for it. And so I would not have, I don't have a problem with this. And quite honestly, if you're worried enough about sending your kids to, they've got to have a cell phone if they go to school because there might be an incident. If you're that worried about it, maybe you ought not to be sending your kid to that school. That's the problem.
Yeah, quite a few years ago, I was down on the Kenai Peninsula, and I went to a private school. It was along California Beach Road or somewhere down in that area, and they had like a thing hanging on the door where you normally put your shoes, little pockets in shoes. And the kids that came in, they had to put their cell phones in those little pockets. They were not allowed in school. Prohibiting the use of cell phones in a school, I think it's going to encourage more social interaction between the students.
Yeah.
Versus it's become more personal versus impersonal.
Yeah. Well, anecdotally, this article actually mentions that now in these schools, just within the first couple weeks, kids are chatting in groups, they're throwing footballs, they're playing card games during lunch, they're actually interacting with each other. And that's what I worry about because you see people, they're buried on their screens. Adults are buried on their screens. And we made it through as kids growing up, we made it through without having immediate access to cell phones and information. Doesn't mean that we don't use technology when it's available. And there's tons of things that technology can do. But I think that, again, banning the use of these distraction devices essentially during the school day is not the end of the world for these kids. In fact, it might be a positive.
Yeah, they may have to go back to having taken a pencil and a piece of paper and passing notes in class.
Right, exactly. They're going to pass notes. They're going to have to learn how to, go back. Mom, can you teach me how to pass a note? Because I can't text anybody anymore. Maybe that's the way it is. But I think that, again, we have to, but one of the technology is awesome. I'm an early embracer of almost every kind of technology there is. I love it. I use it to the best of my ability. But I think one thing that is dangerous is the isolationism that this kind of technology can bring, where you can have a group of people sitting around a table and nobody's talking to each other because everybody's on their phone, surfing whatever. That's never made sense to me. Especially with the young minds full of mush who are just learning about life and everything else. I think taking those things away during that school time makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't allow my kids to be on cell phones when we were homeschooling them. Not that they had cell phones, but they wouldn't be on the computer. They wouldn't be on the computer chatting with other people while we're supposed to be doing work. Right? That's not how it works. All right. Go ahead.
Cell phones become a barrier. They become a barrier to actual personal interactions between people.
Yeah.
And that could lead to mental health issues.
Well, I mean, it's possible, I suppose. There's lots of things that could lead to mental, but again, I just think it's healthier to be able to have a conversation with somebody and be able to discuss things. All right, David, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, I appreciate you coming out, and thanks for writing about this stuff. We'll keep an eye on this, and maybe we can push this into the public eye. Thank you for being part of the show today.
Thank you, Michael, for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you for coming on board. All right, folks, we are out of time. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more. Okay. We're about to be rejoined here in just a second by Bruce Walden. I see that Bruce is down in the I see he's in the green room. Shall we test his connection just to make sure that he's okay? I see the audio, but I don't see the video here. Let's see if we can get him on board. Bruce, are you with us?
I'm here.
Let me push the button. Sorry about that. Ooh, everything's delayed. My bad. Let me try this one more time. I'm going to try and put Bruce back up there. There we go. Bruce, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. You can hear me. You have video today, or you?
I see you, and my video is apparently not. This always works, but of course today it doesn't work. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I see a C. I see some kind of logo there, C with a little dot on it, little purple dot. I don't know if you got to activate your camera or what, but.
Yeah. Let me see if I can make
I'll
it
let
back
you.
up here.
I'll let you work on that here while I talk with the chat room here during the top of the hour break. And if nothing else, we'll bring you on for audio only if we have to. But we'd love to see your smiling face here this morning to discuss things. Bruce Walden is going to be our guest, and you might need to, Bruce. You may want to try and disconnect and reconnect just to see if that helps. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the camera. You can go from there. All right. Let's see. Honestly, says Anthony, though cell phone seems like an inadequate phrase. Being a phone is like a singular function on a device that now does 300 things. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, is it really just a phone, or is it essentially a handheld computer? I mean, that's the whole thing, you know. It's a handheld computer. All right. Let's go back up here. Let's see. Chris says my granddaughter lives on her phone. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We made it back in the back in the 80s. We made it without having cell phones. Right? We made it without having cell phones. We did okay. I mean, if we'd had some cell phones, I mean, I'm sure we would be facing some of the same problems that kids today are facing. But I love the fact that they are now the thing that caught my attention in this is they're now playing card games, and they're talking to each other, they're chatting in groups, they're throwing a football during lunch instead of being stuck on their phones. That's a win for me. That's a win. Now, having access to the technology, and I'm not just talking about cell phones. I mean, they got computers, they got tablets, they got, all that. That's all great. That's all good stuff. They need all that, 100% for sure. But they don't need to have unfettered access through their cell phones to be distracted throughout the day, if that's what they're there for. Melissa, president of the school board in Fairbanks, said this cell phone ban needed to happen. Most of our student disciplines had to do with a cell phone, recording someone in a bathroom, recording a fight, using them to bully students. It's insane. I'm glad we implemented the cell phone ban. We're seeing a huge change of behavior with it. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine going into a locker room to change for gym? And I mean, back in the day, you didn't have cameras, right? Yeah, well, you had cameras, but you didn't have, I mean, a video camera was the size of a football and you had to record it. And then there was no internet. You know what I'm saying? You imagine now you can surreptitiously record anybody in a locker room changing, and then you want to bully. I mean, there's just all kinds of behavior that kids can be mean. We all know that kids, especially in a pack, can be mean. They'll do things that they never would have done on their own. I mean, I think it's a good idea. All right, we'll continue with that. I see that Bruce still has a problem here with his technology here, so I need to go over and let me see if I can find. Okay, I'm gonna have to get a picture of Bruce here. And we'll do that here for just a second. So I'll tell you what, you hang out for a second. I'm going to do some quick behind the scenes stuff, and we're going to get things ready. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll get ready for the top of the hour. Let's do this thing. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Welcome to Hump Day, middle of the week, downhill slide to Firearms Friday. It is the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and of course live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com, where we simulcast the radio show every week, every day. In fact, on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. If you want to go out there and join us, you can do that as well. Hook up with folks there in the chat room. We've got 50 or 60 folks here hanging out with us between the three platforms, engaging in the chat room and talking with each other. Hour two of the big radio show this morning. We just finished up with David Boyle from MustRead Alaska, talking about education. If you missed that, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available on Spotify or wherever great podcasts are found. You can find the show every day there. But meanwhile, in hour two of the big show, let's take a chance, and we're going to dive into this with our friend Bruce Walden, who is one of the latest candidates to put his hat in the ring for the governor's race for the state of Alaska. Bruce Walden joins us this morning to discuss. Let's bring him on the program right now and see what he has to say. Good morning, Bruce. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
You know, just another beautiful day in paradise. It's all I can say right now. Just another beautiful day in paradise. All right, let's start to talk about this now, Bruce. For folks who don't know you, don't know who you are or anything else, give us a bit of background about who Bruce Walden is. You know, who you are, where you come from. Give us some background here.
Sure. Well, I was born in Indiana, and since I turned 18, I joined the Army, and the Army brought me up here. And unlike a lot of the people that they happen to be stationed here and say, I want to stay, I always wanted to come to Alaska. And when the Army offered me that job, I snapped it up. And I served up here for a couple of years and went on to a career in Special Forces, and spent my whole career trying to figure out a way to get back up here. And it never worked out. But when I broke my Army habit, I came back, and I've been here for the last 24, almost 25 years. So. Been writing. I'm a writer. I've written a lot of books, and those are they're doing well. So that's my big gig now, is just writing and putting it out there.
Okay, so you're a writer with a background in military and special forces.
Something's not going right. Oh, there we are.
Anything else? You have run for office as a write-in candidate for governor. Tell us a little bit here about your experiences in running for office before.
Sure. Well, I was more than a write-in candidate. I ran full-fledged the last time around 4 years ago. As a matter of fact, I think I'm the only person in this race who has run for governor before, but unfortunately we didn't succeed. I ran and I didn't make the top four. And so then I turned around and went as a write-in. That sadly, it didn't really get off the ground. But when we did the debates, I debated others. Mike Dunleavy didn't show up for the debates, but when we debated them and the party picked for the job, their people came to me after the debates and said, "Where in the blank have you been?" And I'm taking that guy's sign out of my yard and putting yours in. The whole lot of stuff that we talked about there. And one of the biggies, and maybe we'll get into this later, but talking about the human trafficking up here. And I had people in government, Michael, who came to me and said, I had no idea this was a problem. And I just stare at them and say, you're in government and you don't know this. And since then, Mike Dunleavy started kind of taking it seriously, but not seriously enough. And
Right.
I don't want to be negative, but I want to just talk about my ideas and such as that. But I will call a spade a spade. He just didn't do the job. So.
All right. Well, let's talk about the issues facing Alaska from your point of view before I get down into my questions here. We got about 10 minutes or so. So we'll give you about 10 minutes to kind of flesh out your vision for the state of Alaska, why specifically you're running for governor. What do you think you bring to the table? And what do you think the serious issues are? And what will you be focused on as a as a candidate and as a governor? What would you be focused on? So give us the rundown here, Bruce. Why did you run? What brings you to the table? And what are the issues you think are going to be facing us?
Okay, so you just talked to Mr. Boyle there for the last hour about the school situation. That's a big thing with me. I believe in taking our weakness and making it our strength. And it is a major weakness. We're like the worst school system in the nation is right here. And people can call it what they want to. It's a dropout factory, and it's an absolute disaster. And to me, the fix is very simple. You make it where the parents get to choose. You give them a voucher of a third of what they're paying right now, and you have them just let them send their kid to the school of their choice. And people that fight that, they don't really have a good, counter to that. They're just, well, no, you can't do that. Well, yeah, you can. And if we have to do that by whatever means, we'll do it. Another biggie, the homeless issue, the human trafficking, the prostitution, the drugs, and all these things. I've got a plan for all that. In fact, I wrote a book about it, and I'm not here to hawk my book, but I would advise people to take a look at it. It's called A Contract with Alaska, and it's an opportunity for everybody to get involved in that. The other thing, however, you look at the jobs situation here, there are jobs, but it's not like it was, say, in the late 80s or the late 70s, early 80s when the pipeline was going gangbusters. It can be again. I think it will be, but we have bred a generation who they just don't want to work. And that's, you look a lot where I'm sitting right now. I can look out the window and see homeless people stoned out of their gourd, blundering up and down the road, and nobody's doing anything. And you have a governor that blames the legislature, and a legislature that blames the governor. You have a mayor that blames the assembly blames the mayor. And the bottom line is, if you're in that executive position, the buck stops on your desk. You got to stop the whining. And I told Mike Dunleavy that 5 years ago. I said, people are sick and tired of the excuses. Now, Donald Trump, he wants to, really push for Alaskan energy. And of course, I agree. But when we're going to be selling that stuff to Asia, of course, we want to sell some of it here at home, but he wants to sell to Korea and stuff like that. Japan, I actually lived in Japan for 2.5 years and lived in Korea a good portion of my career. And I actually speak the language. I went to school at Sogang University in Korea. I can go right there and talk to them face to face and push to sell Alaskan energy over there. There's a lot of things we can be doing a lot better. And the reason we're not is we simply have lost the will to do it. And I think that's a major problem here in Alaska is we have lost our will. Right. You remember when we used to be the great state of Alaska and everything was great, the Great Alaska Pipeline, the Great Alaska Highway. We don't think that way anymore. We got roads out here. I'm having to dodge potholes to keep from taking out my suspension on my car. This is ridiculous.
Right. You think that, obviously human trafficking is a thing and it's tragic and it happens, and Alaska there's a big component of that in Alaska. Do you think that's the biggest thing that's facing us as a state? I think it's a serious issue, don't get me wrong, but is it the biggest thing that's facing us as a state and that the governor should be tackling? What else are you looking at in the state that needs to be addressed?
Oh, there's so many things. Again, for instance, the election situation. Our elections here are an absolute disaster, and it's set up right now. And yeah, maybe Bruce can take advantage of the ranked choice voting and maybe it gets me elected. But the bottom line is the way we're doing, I don't think is constitutional, and I'm not okay with it. That needs to be fixed, and it can be fixed easily. It might take an executive order, but it can be fixed. You look at what Donald Trump's doing with executive orders to fix elections all across this country right now. It can be done, but again, we lack the will. But look at jobs, for instance. Look at the schools. We have our best and brightest every year. They graduate from high school and they leave the state. We've got to find a fix for that. I think I have the fixes for that. But if we don't have the jobs for them, we're just failing them miserably. We look at the liquefaction of natural gas. They want to build a pipeline. That pipeline's never going to be built. You and I know that's never going. We come up with great ideas in Alaska. We're really bad at implementing good ideas in Alaska. So my thinking is on the liquefied natural gas, liquefy it on the North Slope where it makes sense. Because the way you liquefy natural gas is you bring the temperature way down and you extend the railroad from Fairbanks to the North Slope for $1 billion, but let the industry pay for it like they did the pipeline. Then you liquefy that gas. I grew up in a gas town. Kokomo, Indiana was founded on an ocean of methane. In the 1880s, it started being found there, and it's still there. But the byproduct of the liquefaction process is helium. And there's a worldwide shortage of helium. Say, well, there's not a need for it. Yeah, actually, there is. It's estimated right now. I was reading the statistics. I don't know where they got their statistics, but it's estimated that there is almost a quadrillion cubic feet of natural gas that can be had on the North Slope. And out of that, you get enough helium, you could fill 700,000 Hindenburgs with the helium that comes out of that. But we will miss that industry just like we miss everything else.
The big question is, and of course, education is going to be part of our discussion this later on. But I mean, the big question is the financial situation in the state. What's your position on the state's current financial position? And as a governor, I do not envy anyone who is trying to be governor in the next term because they're going to be facing some hardships. What are your thoughts on the financial situation in the state right now?
Well, a lot of our problem is the misspending of money. And the way that they tell you, well, we just can't afford to do this. We can't afford to do that. Yeah, let me tell you why you can't afford to do that. Because you try to start a new industry, a new job up here, and they will fight you tooth and nail. Because these people in government at all levels, they see you the way a tick sees a dog. They don't see you as the guy that's going to help to lift all boats. They see you as a blood source. And I know people, I know them personally, who've tried to start some new thing up here and they fight them tooth and nail because they didn't grease the right palm. That's got to stop. That's where it's going to start. But some of the stuff that needs to be happening up here, I think, for instance, our roads that are falling apart, I believe that's a national defense initiative or imperative. Because we have to be, that's why they built the interstate highway system back in the 50s through 70s, because we needed to be able to move troops. And Alaska has no roads, and the roads we have are a joke. That, I believe, defense would help us in that regard. But these would bring jobs into the state. And if we were if the PFD was working the way that it's supposed to be working, the people would be spending their own money instead of the government taking your money and misspending it. That's a huge problem that we have up here. The people that we entrust with those things misspend our money. I believe that the debt could be eliminated if we just put the right people in the right offices.
Bruce Walden is our guest. He's a candidate for governor on the Republican ticket, one of the whole slew of folks that are out there right now to be running for the 2026 election cycle. We are up against the break. We're going to be back here in just a moment with Bruce, and we will continue. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Well, which reminds me that today, by the way, is National Beard Day. So if you don't have a beard today, today's the day to grow one right here. It's National Beard Day today. So congratulations to all of you who are out there with a beard. We're talking with Bruce Walden about this. Now, Bruce, you said you came from Indiana originally, and spent a lot of time in the military. And you've been up in Alaska for how long again? 25 years?
About 25, yeah.
Yeah, 25 years. Okay.
Yeah, 25. I got here in December of 24, so less than 25. Slightly.
Okay. All right. It's well, it's good. I mean, I love to see the passion, and I love to see everything that's going on about about what you're doing. You write for, and we're in the break, so we'll sidebar here for just a minute while we wait, so we don't repeat ourselves for the podcast. What kind of books? You've got a whole slew of books. I see you've got your website here for your author website. Do you have a website for your candidate run, for your gubernatorial run?
I have. It's on Facebook, and it's just Bruce Walden for Governor 2026.
Okay.
But hopefully that'll expand. I'm looking for a campaign director right now. And the thing is everybody says, yeah, we want you to run. We want you to run. It's like, okay, step up to the plate and help me. And then you hear crickets.
Don't do it all by yourself. Yeah, don't do it all by yourself. Right.
No, you get in trouble that way.
What and like you said, you've got a slew of books. What are your books cover? What are some of the different topics? It looks like you've got all different kinds of topics here.
Sure. I write from a Christian perspective. That's the first thing. But I have, as you can see there are 5 nonfictions. There's no such thing as can't. Were you warned? Wickedness in high places. That's about the national debt. Give it a look. Angels in Chains. That's about the human trafficking. And the most recent was a contract with Alaska. But I have a couple of different series on there. One of them is what I call the Mike Reed saga, and it's a kind of a Christian archaeology adventure series. As a matter of fact, I'm this week finishing up the 4th and final one in that series. I have another, for lack of a better phrase, we're calling it the Alaska Vice series, and it starts with human trafficking and goes on to the drug dealing and that kind of thing. So a few different things.
All right, so a bunch of different types of stories, different adventure novels, and some nonfiction as well. And does everything have an Alaska slant on it, or just a portion of just one series of books? Or
well, most of them do. I'll put it that way. There's some of them that they kind of get away from Alaska, but boy, there's always an Alaskan that shows up in there to save the day at some point or another.
All right. Well, good. All right. Well, we'll take a look at this, and we'll continue on here. Let me go back to the chat room and see see if there's anything here that people have been asking. Chris Byers asks, can you put a budget through without overspending and reducing the costs? Is that something that you are focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, just like when you get your paycheck at the end of the week or 2 weeks or whatever, you have to stay within a budget. I do. If the state is not doing that, then we have to take a serious look at the stuff that we're spending money that we shouldn't be spending money on. And I have no problem with spending money if it's spent wisely, but you simply cannot spend outside of your budget. And people will always say, well, Bruce, you got to work with the legislature. Yeah, but you also have to do like Donald Trump does, get out there and stump for better people. And I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this directly to all of you people in government, whether you're running for something right now or not, if you're running against me or not, if you are in government, can you look in the mirror in the morning and say, that guy or that gal right there is doing a stellar job? That person is doing such a good job that anybody outside of Alaska would look at this and say, I want to be like that guy or that gal. I don't think I can think of one that I think is doing a really good job. I won't name him yet. I do in my book, but there might be more, but I can only think of one right now that I think is actually doing a pretty good job. So we're going to have to replace and folks, you're going to have to fall out of love with your so-called candidate. You're just going to have to do it. You can't expect things to get better until you replace most of these people.
Bruce Walden is our guest candidate for governor. We're about to rejoin the radio. Please like and share, like and follow.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, we're continuing now. Bruce Walden is our guest. He's a candidate for governor on the Republican ticket, running for 2026 for the primary next August. It's a crowded field out there. We're trying to get Bruce's take on everything that's going on out there. All right, Bruce, we spent the first segment kind of going over your vision and where you're going for the future. Let me dive into my questions here.
Sure.
Because again, I think we've got some serious issues facing the state. And as I said, I don't envy anyone who's running for governor in this cycle, because I think we're going to be facing one of the toughest challenges for a governor in the coming 4 years than we've ever seen fiscally. I don't know how close you've been following the budgets and the cycles and the pricing of oil. But we know already from the governor's 10-year forecast that the state is facing an average of $1.7 billion deficits every year for the next 10 years. That's an average. We know that next year, according to EIA and IEA, which are the two big bodies that kind of monitor the pricing of oil and production, they're both saying that by the end of this year, early part of next year, Saudi Arabia ramping up their production, et cetera, is going to force the price of oil down into the mid 40s to low 50s for Brent, which means that Alaska ANS will be in the low 50s or maybe in the high 40s. And that's a problem, considering that we are predicating our budget right now on $66 a barrel of oil. And that means that if we have to recalculate, because the year will only be halfway done in January, if we have to recalculate, we could have a $250 million shortfall for this current year. Plus next year, we could be looking at a $2.5 billion shortfall for next year alone. And so the question is, Bruce, how do we pay for everything that everybody wants to do? How do we pay for that? What is the fiscal plan that Bruce Walden has to try and shore up? I mean, because there's no way we can cut $2 billion out of the budget without having tremendous economic damage done all at once. It could be done incrementally, but it just can't be done all in one fell swoop. How do we fill the gap on that $2 billion? What's your fiscal plan for the state of Alaska?
Well, there's an old saying that says, what's the best time to plant a nut tree? It's 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. We're in this situation because of stuff that's been happening all along. So like you said, it's not going to be an immediate fix. We're going to have to start fixing this. Hopefully not a little at a time, but it may start out as a little at a time. But that's not going to happen until we start replacing the people that we send to Juneau. And it's as simple as that. The oil prices are going to drop. But as we ramp up production, they will continue to drop, as you mentioned. But again, there's the gas up there. And there are a lot of other industries here that are just kind of starting to be rebirthed. The timber industry will be kicking off again here soon. And that should have been fixed long ago. But again, there are thousands. We have gotten into the habit that everything depends on oil. And I'm an oil guy, and I believe in oil. I believe in coal. We got the cleanest burning coal in the world right here, and more of it than we'll ever use in our great-great-grandchildren's lifetimes. But we need to start moving that stuff to market. And until we start breaking all these other markets out and letting them sell, we're going to continue. It's $250 million. That ain't nothing compared to what's coming if we don't start supporting. And I don't mean putting government money into it. I'm talking about getting the government out of the way of these other industries so they can be developed.
I mean, I agree that resource development is it could be a revenue boon for the state of Alaska. The problem with resource development of all types, whether it's lumber or coal or gas or whatever it is that we're doing, is that they all have an extremely long tail, meaning that it's a 7 to 10 year cycle to get those things online and to really start seeing some revenue. We've got a problem next year, Bruce. $2 billion potentially in the next 18 months. How do we fix it? What is the answer to that? Are we looking at other sources of revenue? Are we looking at a potential tax on the citizens of Alaska? The permanent fund, I think, this will probably be the last year we receive the permanent fund. I mean, but even if they take all of the permanent fund, that only fills $600 million of that $2 billion hole. What is your plan as governor to try and shore up and to fix that in the coming year?
Well, again, it's going to be a slow start. But as far as the 10 years to get things online, that's only that way because we've allowed it to become that way. You can see that with what President Trump is doing, he is removing the roadblocks so we can develop the other things. It might be painful for a little while, but unless we start taking those steps now, it'll be 10 times as painful after those 10 years have passed. The situation that we're going into over the course of the next fiscal year and right up until election day of next year, that's of our own doing because we allowed the wrong people to run the show. And unless we fix that, none of it's going to be fixed. None of it matters because these people, they will continue to grab and grab and grab. And I'm talking about the people that are in government. And none of it's going to make any difference unless we don't replace those people.
Well, and again, even if we let's just say that, President Trump, clearing the way, clearing path, getting governments out of the way. I mean, we still have physical limitations on building out infrastructure and logistics and everything else. Let's say it's not a 10-year tail. Let's say it's a 5-year tail. Again, we still have 5 years of $1.7 billion a year per average in deficits. I mean, do you have anything concrete to help fill that gap? I mean, are we talking about some kind of restructuring? Are we talking about some reductions? Are we talking about looking at oil taxation? Are we talking about, a sales tax, a statewide sales tax? I mean, what are the things that you are looking at to try and backfill that? Because we only have $3 billion in the CBR. We might be able to borrow from the CBR this next year to get us through this next year, but by year 2 and year 3, there is no more money. So how do we get through that? Well,
again, we have the coal. That's one thing we need, and it doesn't take a miracle to get that moving. We've done it in the past. It's right up here in Sutton, right up from my house. We can get that stuff, and there's a major market for it in East Asia, and not the Chinese. I wouldn't touch the Chinese. I don't want anything to do with them. But places like Japan and Korea and Thailand and all these places, they want our clean burning coal. That will be a step in that direction. But it's going to be so many different steps that are going to have to be taken to undo this mess that's been dropped in our laps. And the thing is, Michael, they've been seeing this coming. The people in government here have been watching this coming for years. We're in this situation now because what they've been doing and what they've not been doing, and the people keep sending the same people down to Juneau hoping for a change. And it's not going to change, and not the way it is now. But if we get thinking people in those jobs that are watching out for the state rather than themselves and looking at their next election, yeah, we might start changing some things and getting them fixed.
Some of the big things that we're dealing with, I mean, you said earlier, we become so dependent on oil. Well, we're not dependent on oil anymore. Oil only accounts for 20% of the revenues in the state. The vast majority of the revenues are coming from the spinoff of the permanent fund itself. And one of the things the governor has control of is the permanent fund board. Now, we've been looking at this and diving deep into this over the last few weeks on the program. And what we're seeing is a permanent fund board that's spending some of the highest management fees in the country, upwards of $1 billion a year to manage the fund, and yet they're returning their returns are all off by in fact over 400% negative growth in just the last 3 years, a destruction of the value of the fund, comparing it to what their passive benchmarks are. And that doesn't even count if you just tied it to the S&P or the Vanguard or whatever. We'd have another 30 or 40 billion dollars in there if we just tied it to the S&P 500 and let it sit. We'd be over $100 billion and be generating and spending off a ton of money. But we're not doing that. The governor has sole control of the board of the permanent fund. Have you looked into this? Are you familiar with this? Would you be putting people in there who would look at this and maybe decide we need to, go to a pegged index instead of trying to do all this investing that's not returning what it should be?
Right. Yeah, I have been looking into it. The thing is, we're going to have to, as far as I'm concerned, the whole board needs to be replaced. Are they doing a good job now? I don't think they are. So why do we keep them? They need to be replaced with better and smarter people. We'll do that.
the discussion around the permanent fund also has centered on SJR 14, which is the constitutional amendment that's being floated to try and combine the funds, the corpus of the fund, the untouchable part of the fund, the seed corn, the earnings part, the principal, I guess I should say, and then we have the earnings reserve, which is where the money is deposited every year for the earnings, and that is, of course, where the government has been drawing their money. That's where the PFD comes from. There's a proposal out there to combine the two funds into a single sovereign wealth fund. And they say that they need to do that for efficiency's sake and for all these other reasons, but it would also open up the corpus of the fund to be able to be appropriated by a simple majority vote of the legislature. They said that they'll peg their draw to a certain amount and they wouldn't overdraw it. But of course, as we're looking at $1.7 billion per year in deficit for the next 10 years going forward, nobody really thinks that that's going to happen. What is your position on combining the funds?
No, I'm not okay with that at all. It amazes me how that we had a fund that was paying out to the people until Bill Walker took over, and he stole it. And, he stole the people's money. I'm going to say it plainly, and it's never recovered. It's amazing how it used to work, but it doesn't anymore. And a lot of that's because of mismanagement. And I think all of it because of mismanagement of the fund. And until we replace those people, it'll continue to be that way. And whether we ever get another check from the permanent fund or not, I say we should. I mean, otherwise give me the deed to my land, as I say, sky high and hell deep. If you're not going to let me get my portion of that, give me my total deed to my property. That's only getting us part of the way there. If you have these same people mismanaging the fund, continuing to mismanage the fund from now on till God knows when, it's never going to get better. It will continually get worse. That's why a lot of people, our best and brightest, are cutting and running and leaving the state, because they realize this state, our government, is a joke. It's a disaster.
And I mean, I agree that I think combining the funds is very dangerous because it gives them the opportunity to eat the seed corn, and of course that's a huge deal. Let's move on to the big issue, which of course we covered this year, which is the schooling. They've already said that they've increased the BSA by $700. It's a permanent increase forever moving forward, $270 million a year for the foreseeable future. And they've already said they're coming back again this year for another bite at the apple. What's your position on school funding? Should it be increased? Should it be increased, but with policy changes? Should they learn to live with what they have right now? What's your position on school funding in the state of Alaska?
Okay, I am. What's going to happen? Donald Trump and the current administration is pushing the education down to the state level. This state will fumble the ball, as they do with everything. They're going to see, okay, now we can take this money. We're spending about, I think, 3 times what the average state is spending on education. And we're turning out students who go outside and have to take remedial math and remedial English. But again, I believe in taking a weakness and making it a strength. We can do that by taking that same money, reducing it, in my way of thinking, reducing it and giving a voucher to the parents for each kid. Now, I put my 2 sons, they were in Christian school, and this is 20 years ago. And they've both since grown up. And I think I was paying $6,000 a year for each of them. And they got a quality education. So then the people will jump up and say, well, you can't send your kid to public school. I meant to Christian school on public dollars. I say you give the voucher to the parent and let them decide where they send their kid. If you did that, let's say you got... my kid went to Colony, and Colony, as far as Alaska schools go, isn't that bad. It's one of the better ones. That's not saying much. But let's say you got them, and they're turning out a good product. And right down the road, you've got another school that's turning out an inferior product. Well, that smart parent will take their kid to the good school and give the voucher to that school for their kid. The other school that's not performing well, they'll have 2 choices. They can either up their game, or they can fold, they can close their doors. That's going to be the first step right there. You get out into the bush schools, and I've seen this, and this isn't, I'm not being mean to the folks in the bush or the native communities, but when you have a community of, I always pick on Russian Mission because the math is good. It's easy in there. You've got 300 people, and out of those 300, you got, I think, 100 students from K to 12. You can't have the best, say, biology teacher in the state in that school. or the best math teacher in the state in that school. It's just impossible. You can't do that. But if you teach them over the cloud, you can do that. My ex, she has a PhD in internet technology, that kind of thing. And she taught 3 classes. She taught at Wayland Baptist here in Anchorage, and she taught 2 other classes over the cloud in real time. That's something maybe we need to be looking at. And people say, can we afford it? You can't afford not to do it. Because we have kids that come in from the villages and they go to, for instance, take the ASVAB to join the military, and they get a 3 out of 30. That's not good enough, folks. But we can fix that without increasing the education budget. We're told that we can't do these things until the people believe it. And that's got to stop.
Bruce Walden is our guest candidate for governor. We're coming up on the next break. We got to continue here in just a moment. One final segment dead ahead with Bruce Walden. You can find him on Facebook. Bruce Walden for Governor 2026 on Facebook. We're going to continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more when we return.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Bruce Walden is our guest. Bruce, we have we have what, 54 school districts in the state. Some of them with as few as 100 students, some of them more. I mean, we've got the whole state of Hawaii is under one school district.
Yep.
With more students than what we have. I mean, should we be looking at consolidating the school districts as one of the ways to try and save money, to eliminate the duplication of effort that we see in the different positions and everything else? Is that something that you would seriously look at?
100% I would. And let me give you two instances that pushed me to that decision. In the Matsu, where I live, there are 2 elementary schools, and you go to those campuses and you have a kindergarten through 3rd, I think. And then on the other side, you got 4th through 6th in 2 different buildings with 2 administrations. And you could take a slingshot and put your back against one wall and hit the other school. When I was on the planning commission for the Matsu, we had a school site location committee or something. They're looking to build new schools. Like, well, you know what? The schools you got aren't performing. We've got a problem here. I am for combining the whole shebang, at least into 2 or 3, if not just one school system. And now I say it that way because I believe in local control as much as humanly possible. When I started school, when I was a kid, the PTA actually meant something. The parent was the big P. What we were taught in, say, Howard County, Indiana, wasn't necessarily the same as what needed to be taught in Indianapolis, just 50 miles away. What's taught in, say, Caltag might not all apply to what happens here, but I still say that could be done under one single administration. It's just like with the farm bill, the thing that the governor's coming up with now, that he wants a Department of Agriculture. You already have a Division of Agriculture. Just make it work. We can do the same thing with the schools.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Miguel asked in the chat room, the Anchorage School District said has no more federal funding due to them not complying with the law. Would you share those federal funds with all the other districts that are following the law? I don't know if that's even within the governor's purview, but if it was, if they got the funding at the state level and it just wasn't dispersed, would you share it with other schools?
Well, I think so. I'd have to look a little closer into it, but I think so, yeah. When you have it, to my way of thinking, when you have one big school district, all right, the state of Alaska school district, well, there are some cases where, again, in the smaller towns where they don't have the option of going down the road to the other school, but they do have the option of having better teachers. I think that if we had it as one big, gigantic school system, I think that would have it under one administration, but push the local control down to the localities. For instance, let's say you're in Unalakleet I've been to Unaclete. They need to learn to speak English, but they also need to learn how to speak Yupik. But they also need math and science and all these other things. But there are things that will apply out there that don't apply here in Anchorage. For instance, maybe you get the older folks to come in there and teach them, some of the stuff that gets them by in the local area, hunting, trapping, that kind of thing, whatever. But the way we're doing is it's a joke. And they know it. The people in charge, the people that run the state, they know that it's a joke, and they laugh at you because they know you're just going to send them right back there to do it again.
Well, I mean, the big thing on the governor, the heartache that the governor had this go around was the policy changes. Essentially, the people that were pro school funding were all about just give me the money and shut up. We're not, we'll talk about policy later, but policy has a huge impact. I mean, shouldn't we be dealing with policy before we start dealing with funding? I
think it should be the first thing, because if you can't prove that you're going to turn out a good product, why would I give you money? If you told me, say, Bruce, I've invented a new car. Give me $5,000 and next year I'll give you a car that you can afford. What's it look like? I don't know. Well, what's it run on? I don't know. I'm not going to give you $5,000.
Right. Exactly. I mean, we got to have some proof in the pudding before we see anything else. And that's one of the things that I think in this whole debate over education has been a problem, is that what's gotten lost in the discussion is the outcomes. Nobody's talking about the outcomes of students. I mean, nobody on the pro give us more money side is talking about anything else. It's about stability. It's about protecting the jobs and the teachers and the stability of the system. Nobody's saying this will fix the educational outcomes. Nobody's talking about the kids. I think they're getting lost in the discussion.
Right. And there's a saying, when I was in Special Forces, we had a saying that good intentions don't mean anything. Good intentions get you killed. The only thing that matters is results. And we look at our school system. Again, my son, he went to Colony, and as far as Alaska schools go, it was one of the better ones. And he went there because they had an Army ROTC program, and those folks were awesome.
Yeah.
But when you say, this might sound bad, but it's like if you got moose manure in one hand and you got dog manure in the other hand, which one's your favorite? Well, probably the moose manure because it doesn't stink, but you still got two hands full of poop. All right.
Yeah. No.
It's like that with our schools up here, unfortunately.
All right. Bruce Walden is our guest. We're going to continue here, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's get to it. Here we go. Please like and share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube-y stuff.
Can you hear me right now,
Public
Michael?
enemy number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, we're continuing now. One final segment with Bruce Walden, who's a Republican candidate for governor, running during the jungle primary here in 2026. One of, 10 candidates now running for governor. It's a crowded field out there. We're trying to see if we can differentiate between the candidates a little bit here. Bruce, we just talked about education. One of the other things that I'm sure is probably going to come up this year, even though we're facing a multi-billion-dollar deficit potentially this next year. The other thing that's been discussed and is being batted around is the idea that defined benefits needs to come back. Defined benefits needs to come back because that's the only way we're going to retain employees and everything else. The cost, well, potentially upwards of $1 billion a year, up to $10 billion over the course of 25 years. It's a huge cost. What is your position on the defined benefits package? Should we do that, or should we flesh out the defined contributions more? What should we be doing with the benefits for the state employees?
Well, I worked for the state for a very short while myself. I was not happy with it. And just like everything else, we're going to have to actually step way back and take a real look at it. And that is the problem right now. That's what's not being done. The people that are in government right now, they will tell you one thing and turn right around and do another. So we're going to have to look at that a little bit closer.
So you're not a pro, not a con, you're not against it, or what, as far as if the bill was laid in front of you today, what would your position be on signing or vetoing a defined benefits bill in front of you today?
Well, I'd have to see what the defined benefits are, but as it is right now, no, There are too many things that say we're going to get this, period. Well, there has to be caveats to that. Why are you going to get that? What is going to be the benefit to the state? And that right there is the main thing. How will the people of the state of Alaska benefit? If it's for that individual's benefit, nobody else's, then we've got a problem there, don't we?
Well, and are you familiar with the defined benefits as it sat in the past before we moved to defined contributions? Are you familiar with the tiered system and the costs involved in that?
Well, I know about the costs. I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, but I know that it's entirely too high.
Right. And that they want to return all of the state employees to that plan, which, again, a defined contributions over a defined benefit. The defined benefit portion of it is always amorphous because you can never tell what that benefit's going to be 20 years from now. That's part of the problem, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's the thing is we get pigeonholed into these different things like that. And well, it's law. So you're stuck with it. And that's why we're so deep in debt right now. So in that regard, I am 100% against it. We send legislatures to Juneau to Congress is a session. It's a meeting. It's nothing more. It's not supposed to be a career. And if they can't make decisions on stuff like this in a bi-yearly basis, then I'm not sure why we're sending them there.
Right.
Defined benefits that never go away or don't go away for 10 years, 20 years. I'm 100% against that.
Bruce Walden is our guest candidate for governor. Bruce, fisheries is a big issue, and I've moved down to the Homer area in the Lower Peninsula here within the last year, and I'm seeing how much of an effect that has. I hadn't previously really paid a lot of attention to fisheries, just some, in passing. But it's a huge issue, especially for coastal communities and everything else. And we've got this discussion on bycatch and trawlers and fishing in general, king salmon, the disappearance of the king salmon on the Kenai, and many other things. What is your position on the different fisheries issues? Have you done some research on this and taken some positions on things we need to do?
Yes, I have. And I've got friends that I got a very dear friend of mine who, pardon me, alarm's going off there. Have a dear friend who is a commercial fisherman out of Dillingham. He's a native fella. He works out of there. This past year, he had a decent catch, but that's the first time in years that he's had a decent catch. And the problem is we have these foreign and sometimes just other states, they send their crews up here and they catch our fish. They haul them away. We get nothing. But these are fish that are coming out of hatcheries right here in Alaska. They are Alaska-bound fish. And as far as I'm concerned, it comes to it. It's a degree of piracy on the high sea. When you have a Chinese trawler or a Russian trawler that comes in here and they scoop up junk fish, and to the detriment of quality fish that would otherwise make it into our streams, we've got a problem here. And this is something that I want to see federal help with. I want to see the Coast Guard policing that, because when they were first brought into being, they were called the Revenue Marine. They were there to protect the fishing rights, that kind of thing. And maybe they still do to an extent, but we got to get back to that. And as I tell people on the outside, our fish here, that's not just something we go and catch a couple of bass. This is our grocery bill here. And that's something I will take extremely seriously. And I'll bring in the people who are the experts, and I'm talking about local experts on this business. I could go on and on about what I would do if I had the authority to do it, but we'll talk about that some other time.
Well, I mean, let me just say, I've endowed you to be governor. You have the magic wand. You can be king for a day. You can make whatever change you need to change in the state of Alaska to fit. What would that be, Bruce? What would be the thing that you would do, or the things that you would do as the chief administrator of the state? If you could wave your magic wand and get policies changed, what would you be doing?
If I could wave a magic wand, it would make all of the foreign and the out-of-state trawlers to not be here. Well, that's not going to happen. Short of that, we have got to make it plain to them, we're no longer going to roll over while you steal our fish. If that means cutting your nets loose, then that's what we might have to do. But that's where we have to bring in the feds. When the fish are out at sea and they're outside of our national limits, there's only so much that the state of Alaska can do. But that's where the federal government, that's why we have a federal government, to protect these rights. And in the beginning of this country, they understood that fishing rights were extremely important to the people.
Right.
So we're going to have to do that.
We're down to the last 2 or 3 minutes here, Bruce. So I want to give you a chance. People, if they've never met you, they don't know you, give us the elevator pitch. Why Bruce Walden is the best candidate for governor. Give us, give us the ticket here as to why they should vote in this crowded field. I mean, 10 people running for governor at this point. Why should Bruce Walden be one of their top picks? Ranked 1 or 2 or whatever in their choices. Why should you be up there? Give us your full-on politician elevator pitch here.
Well, I don't know how much of a politician I am, but I'll give it my best shot. For one thing, I don't back down. I'm the only person in this race that ever served in the field in which I served. I think I'm the only combat veteran that's in this race. And again, where I come from, good intentions mean nothing. The only thing that matters is results, and I will bring results. We have I'm going to say it, and I hate to be mean, but I'm going to say it. We've got a governor right now who has sat in a corner and done nothing for basically the last 7 years. And I won't be that person. I'm going to be the guy that's going to get out front and lead. We will find the answers. And the thing is anybody that stands up here and tells you, I have all the answers, they're lying to you. They don't have all the answers. You may not see the answers till you get to Juneau, but I can tell you this beyond the shadow of a doubt, the way that we're doing it now, that ain't it, baby. We're going to do some different things. We're going to do things differently. We're going to start fixing some things. But the other thing is I want the people to get involved. I want you to, if you can't afford to buy a book, you let me know. I'll put one in your hands. Won't charge you maybe a cup of coffee. But in the back of this book, I have 20 lines. Give me your ideas. And we're going to take the top 10 or 15 of them, and we're going to make it a contract with Alaska. And as over the next 18 months or however long it is till election day, I'm going to be out here stumping. In fact, my first one's going to be on the 21st of September in right down your way. I'll be in Soldotna on stage there. And we're going to start putting together a contract. And any local or state candidate that will not sign on, I will work to keep you out. If you're in office right now, man, just pack your bags, because you guys have failed. You gals have failed us. And I don't care what lie you have to tell yourself to sleep at night. You are all doing a really horrible job.
Yeah,
we deserve better. I believe the people of Alaska deserve better, and I intend to bring it to them.
Quick one answer, because you ran last year. You got out of the primary. You ran a write-in afterwards. If you don't win the primary, or if you win the primary and you're in the not the top vote getter, will you recuse yourself from the race? Yes or no?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. All right. I think that's a big question. I think a lot of people are asking right now, but we're out of time. Bruce Walden, candidate for governor. Bruce, thank you so much for coming on board. We appreciate it. Hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bernadette Wilson is our guest, as well as folks talking about mental health on the Kenai. We'll see you. All right. I want to give Bruce one final bite at this apple here real quick. I don't have a lot of time. I got about 4 minutes, but Bruce, again, my main question to every gubernatorial candidate is, how do we pay for it all? And I haven't heard any solid, how do we pay for it? What do we have to do? Is it pure cuts? Is it cuts in revenue? Is it, all these different questions. I gotta have your answer. What is your solution for the next 24 months? How do we pay for all the things here if we can't draw it from savings?
Right. We're going to have to cut and cut and cut. And there are going to be some painful cuts, but there's a lot of stuff that the state is doing that we simply can't afford. They're luxuries that we can't afford anymore. That'll be the first thing as we begin to expand other industries here and hopefully get more of the oil and gas and such as that flowing. That's going to be the first step. We're going to have to cut the cost of government up here. We mentioned the school system here a while ago. That's a perfect example of how we misspend money to ridiculous amounts of money. There are a lot of other things here in the state where they misspend money constantly, and the people seem to, it's not that the people are okay with it, but they don't seem to care enough to fix it. You fix it by getting rid of these people and getting better.
All right. Well, Bruce Walden, candidate for governor. Again, you can find him on Facebook, Bruce Walden for Governor 2026. You can find him out there as well. Hopefully he gets a website up here soon, and we'll continue this conversation, I'm sure, over the next 10, 12, 11, 12 months before the primary. Bruce, thank you so much for coming on board. We appreciate you being part of it today.
All right, take care.
All right, folks, that does it for us today. We are out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back with more tomorrow, including Bernadette Wilson and more. That's all coming up. Thanks for being part of the show today. We appreciate you. Please like and share if you haven't. Do it before you go. Will you do that for me? Appreciate it. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.